Welcome in to your Wednesday edition of Bet. I'm your host, Anita Marks. We've got a great show lined up for you. Andre Snellings is going to join us. We'll talk some NBA futures. They just hit from Caesars. The Lakers, their win total. LeBron James not retiring. What does he think about the Lakers? Also, Joe Fortenbaugh is going to stick around and join us after climbing mountains. We're going to talk about some NFL futures, some running backs that are going to have to play on the franchise tag, and Tyreek Hill claiming he's going to put up 2,000 receiving yards. But let's start down under. That's right. The Women's World Cup starts in Australia, and bright and early tomorrow morning, let's take a look. The U.S., they are favored to claim their third straight world championship at plus 220, but lurking right behind them, some European powerhouses, right? England, second at plus 450, Spain 5-1, Germany 8-1, and France rounds out the top five at 10-1. All right, so super excited to have the man of the hour. Man, the next few weeks, it's your oyster. Sebastian Salazar joining us, all things soccer on all our ESPN platforms. So, Sebi, I know we had you on a couple weeks ago. Let's dive right back into it because 3 a.m., the party gets started, right? The USA favored to win this whole damn thing at plus 220, right, on the eve of the tournament. But is there a play out there, some solid European teams that very well could pull the upset? What are some of the other teams outside of the United States that we should be paying attention to?
Yeah. Well, let me quickly address the United States first, because I don't want to sit here and say that at plus 220, the defending champions are a bad value, right? I just don't think it's maybe the greatest value out there when you look at the futures of this tournament. And there's a few reasons for that. We talked about it last time. Their last major international tournament was a major, major bust. They haven't really convinced since then. The one kind of area of hope is that it's a very different team that disappointed at the Tokyo Olympics. They are much younger and, much more importantly, much faster. So at plus 220, I know a lot of the people watching are fans. If you want to celebrate a little extra, if they do pull off the three-peat, I don't think plus 220 is a bad value, but there's better values out there. Specifically, I would start at 12-1 with the home country, Australia. I think you can just never discount the host. I'm already hearing reports from Australia that there's just an incredible buzz around this tournament, and specifically the Australian team. They have, for me, the most impactful offensive player in the tournament. That's Sam Kerr. She's an just incredible striking player. So I think she's one to watch in some other categories as well. And then, of course, I have to address the European teams. There you see a lot of people think England is kind of the biggest threat to the United States out of Europe. I would actually go with Germany. Germany has another top-of-the-line scorer in Alexandra Popp. We can talk about her a little bit later on. But it's a German team that went to the finals of last summer's European Championship, even though it was in England. And they proved a lot to me there in that tournament. So I think the Germans could be in here for a deep run as well.
Okay, so it's not just, of course, the team odds where the United States, the red, white, and blue, is favored, but Alex Morgan and Sophia Smith are also 1 and 2, respectively, to win, of course, the Golden Boot as the tournament is about to kick off, no pun intended. Now, if I was to offer you those two players or the field, which one would you take?
I would take the field. Now, some of that is due to the fact that I think the U.S. is going to be a score-by-committee approach. I think we're going to get a lot of rotation in the group phase. I think we're going to see a lot of different players get playing time, not just in the group phase, but throughout the tournament. It's an extremely deep team, and I don't think there's going to be one player that kind of stands out in terms of goals on the U.S. roster. Specifically, Alex Morgan. I know she had 6 goals last time around, but if you remember, 5 of them came in the very first game against Thailand. After that, she doesn't score again until deep into the knockout rounds. Sophia Smith is an incredible player, but I think she is going to draw the focus of most of the defenses that go up against this U.S. team. So I am looking a little bit further down, and the 2 names I've already mentioned are the 2 I want to focus in on here. Sam Kerr of Australia at 11-1, and Alexandra Popp of Germany at 14-1. Popp at the last European Championships scored 6 goals, so she's a player that we know at this international level, at the biggest games, the biggest tournaments, can deliver. And Sam Kerr, no matter what level she's playing at, we had a chance to see her a lot in the United States. She kind of launched her career in the National Women's Soccer League, but she's now in England, and she is a dominant goal-scoring force. So for her, at 11-1, I just think that's an incredible value right there for Golden Boot.
Sebastian, before we let you go, I want to turn our attention to the MLS, where Messi makes his arrival in my hometown, the 305, baby, Miami. I love it. He's out there. He's shopping at Publix with his boys. Man, a lot of excitement. Now, Inter Miami, of course, too late really to make a run at the playoffs. But what kind of immediate impact do you see Messi making right now as the season continues for Miami?
Yeah. I was lucky enough to be down there Sunday night and sit through the 2-hour lightning storm to see him introduced. And just as somebody who loves soccer and always has, it really did feel like a watershed moment. Look, Lionel Messi's not coming to Inter Miami alone. It's important to note that. Yes, they're dead last in the Eastern Conference. Yes, there's only 12 games left in the MLS regular season. But I think when you think about the totality of talent that's coming in, Sergio Busquets, one of his longtime teammates at Barcelona, has already officially joined the club. Jordi Alba, another longtime Barcelona player, is set to join the club. We're hearing Luis Suarez, who's an amazing goal scorer in his own right. Yeah, a little bit past his prime, could be joining the club all before the summer is over. So I know that the MLS Cup odds from Miami took a huge jump when Messi joined. I don't think they're going to win it all. But I think it's going to be a very interesting kind of rush towards the end of the season to see if they can make the MLS Cup playoffs. If you want to bet anything on Messi, and you're going to have to dig to find this, look for U.S. Open Cup futures odds. That's really, in my opinion, the first chance that Lionel Messi will have to make an impact with Inter Miami and get them to a trophy. They're already in the semifinals of that competition. Their next game's August 23rd against FC Cincinnati, who in their own right is having a great season. It's a separate competition from Major League Soccer. But if they win that game on August 23rd, there's one game between Lionel Messi, Inter Miami, and his first trophy on North American soil. So I think it's a play for the future. Next year, they're going to be a real threat to win MLS Cup, but don't sleep on Lionel Messi, man. That guy is a pro at lifting trophies. He can certainly do it here with Inter Miami.
Sebi, great stuff. We're so thrilled to have you join us. You're going to be one of the hardest working men at ESPN the next few weeks with the Women's U.S. Open. So I'm really excited. I'm sure we'll see your face here on Bet quite often. Thank you, my friend.
Great to be with you guys, as always.
All right, so we go from talking football to basketball. Let's shift to the NBA. Caesars released their 2023-24 win totals recently. And here's a look at some of the notable totals. At the high end, 6 teams posted totals over 50. Celtics leading the way with 54.5. Defending champion Nuggets and the Bucks are one behind at 53.5. Where's the respect, I say? While the Sixers, Suns, and Cavs round out the group. Some other interesting ones. How about the Warriors, the Lakers, the Knicks, the Kings, and the Grizzlies, all north of 45? While, oh, boo-hoo, the post-Bradley Beal era with the Wizards bringing up the rear at a total of 24.5. So we bring in Andre Snellings. Great to have you on the program. Let's start with the Lakers. LeBron James comes out on the ESPYs and announces that he's not going to retire, as if that was a surprise to any of us. On top of that, he's going back to his number 23. But let's talk about the number 46.5. That's the over-under win total for the Lakers. As we know, they won 43 last season, and this is a much different roster. So with this roster, assuming LeBron and AD stay healthy, what do you make of this number, Dre?
I like the over. I think that number is low because of the risk of LeBron and Anthony Davis getting injured. But after all of the trades they made at the deadline last season, from February 15th until May 15th, which was after the second round of the playoffs, they went 26-11 overall, including the play-in game. That's 58 win pace. So now they'll have a full season with this team. I think even with the risk of injury to Anthony Davis and LeBron James, 46 wins is very doable for a team that could challenge for 60.
The Nuggets, 53.5. Where's the respect? They're giving the Celtics an opportunity. Odds makers feel the Celtics will win more games. But nonetheless, are you worried about a championship hangover?
Absolutely not. I know they're your people, and I think you have good reason to go over with them again this season. People kind of slept a little bit during the season, me included, on the fact that from about December 8th for the next 3 to 4 months, the Nuggets they went 32-9. That's 64-win pace. And 3 of those losses came in games that the Joker was out. And so they slowed down a little bit at the end of the regular season after they had already clinched the number 1 overall seed in the West. But in the playoffs, they showed again that 32-9, 64-win team, that's who they really are. They were that dominant in the postseason. So they should have a championship swagger this season. Unless there's some sort of major injury, I'm expecting them to go well over 53.5.
All right, let's head to the East. Let's talk about Philadelphia. Boy, drama. There's got to be a reality show somewhere that would get a ton of ratings, right? Doc Rivers is out. Harden is on his way out. Embiid having beef on social media with his general manager. With all that being said, 51 wins? To me, I'm leaning on the under here. Where does this stand for you?
Yeah, I'm out on the 76ers right now. If I had to pick today, I would pick the under because I need to know what's going to happen with Harden specifically so I'll know how Joel Embiid feels going into this season. If Embiid is healthy and they bring in something reasonable for Harden and Embiid is bought in, they have the talent to win more than 51 games, even if they don't have Harden. But if Embiid is, as you said, he's beefing with the front office, and there are questions about Daryl Morey, and they fired the coach, and there's just all types of negatives. If Harden is traded for something that doesn't make them or keep them immediate contenders, and Embiid goes out, then I can see them going way under. So there's way too much uncertainty for me. I'm staying away from over with the 76ers.
Okay, well, we've been working together enough. You know me. I like to bet the overs because I like rooting for teams and I like rooting for players as opposed to the unders. So give me some over win totals that I can go to the window with right now.
Yeah. I like the Cavs over 50.5 wins. They're a young team on the rise. They were right there at 51 wins last season, and I expect them to be better this year than last. The Warriors at 48.5 to me seems like easy money. They finally bought in. They picked the direction. They picked the older champions over their youth movement, and I think that was the right way to go. They brought in Chris Paul. I'm expecting them to bounce back in a big way. No way they lose so much on the road next season. So I'm going over 48.5 with them. The Kings, 45.5 is really low for a team that was the number 3 seed last season, and they're also young on the way up. And then the Thunder, they won 40 games last season in a year that everybody thought that they were going to be battling for the Wembanyama sweepstakes. They're really young. They're really talented. They get Chet Holmgren back. I like them to go over 44.5 games and make the playoffs this season.
Yeah, out of all of those, I'm with you with the Warriors. I like the addition of Chris Paul, especially him coming off the sixth man and giving Steph a little rest, especially when we're talking about load management, is we're talking about a team that's a lot older than most. And I think really big key, getting Draymond Green back as well. So I'm with you. Out of all those, probably the Warriors is my favorite overplay. All right, Dre, before we let you go, you've been crushing it with tennis, right? With Wimbledon and whatnot, and Carlos Alcaraz. Unbelievable. Now, we're just a few weeks away, U.S. Open coming here. I can't wait to go see Carlos. I'm already requesting my tickets. He's favored to win the U.S. Open at plus 125. You've got Djokovic. He's at plus 160. Any plays for us for the U.S. Open before we let you go?
Yeah, I mean, it's still early. On the men's side, I think right now, Alcaraz and Djokovic are just head and shoulders above everyone else. And so I look to motivation. So I think I would lean Alcaraz today if I had to make a pick. He really showed me something by beating Djokovic, the four-time champion at Wimbledon. And keep an eye on Daniil Medvedev as well. He's a former U.S. Open champion, and he should be right there in the mix. On the women's side, Swiatek is the defending champion. I agree with her being favored, but that plus 250 shows that she's kind of first among equals. I think Ons Jabeur, fresh off making the finals at Wimbledon, She'll be right there in the mix. She was in the finals against Swiatek in the U.S. Open last season. I expect her to be there. And I really like how Aryna Sabalenka has been playing. She won the Australian Open this season, and she's another that could be right there for the championship in the last major of this season.
No love for Coco Gauff at 14-1, right? No love for an American? Come on, man.
I'm not putting my money on her to win. I will put some money on her potentially to make the quarters and or the semis, because I think she could make a bounce-back run after a really disappointing Wimbledon performance.
Dre, thank you so much. Always great having you on, my friend. Appreciate it. You have a great night.
All right, catch you next
last but
time.
not least, let's welcome in Joe Fortenbaugh. Joe, marathon man, unbelievable father, right? And now a mountain climber. I heard on Daily Wager last night. How you feeling, dude?
Well, Anita, as you know, I'm not one to talk much. I'm a humble guy. I like to keep it to myself. But since you've opened the door to the greatness of me climbing that mountain, yes, I will discuss it. Yes, I climbed Mount Rainier. I may or may not have set a world record in the progress. I may or may not now be a member of the 14,000 club. And for me, it's just another day at the office. You go out there, you explore a little bit, you come back to work. Not a big deal, but thank you for bringing it up.
Man, really, really, really impressive. I'll tell you which
is.
was not impressive, and that was Monday in the NFL. News breaking that Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, and Tony Pollard, unfortunately, not one of those three running backs could get a deal done, so all of them will have to play on their franchise tag. So let's start right there, right? And so let's start with Saquon Barkley. Prop dropped with the news that he's going to have to play on the tag to 925.5. So with that being said, what do you make of this number, Joe?
So this is an interesting one because these bookmakers, they spent plenty of time putting these props together, right? They came up with the best possible number they could. And then it turns out these guys don't reach agreements on long-term deals. So now there's a mindset that they might not play games. They might hold out. So they drop the prop. And in Saquon's case, it's what, 50 or 75 yards? If you don't think he's going to miss games, do you think he's going to play in week one because he wants that money? And a lot of guys do. They saw what happened to Le'Veon Bell. There's a lot of value playing the over there. We're not asking for much here. I think over a 17-game season, he'd have to rush for about 54 yards per game. If my notes are correct here, 27 running backs did that last year while playing in double-digit games. So the injuries are certainly a concern with Barkley. I'd lean to the over here, but I haven't fired on it yet.
So interesting. I filled in for Alan Hahn on 98.7 ESPN this week, and so I did a few shows with Bart Scott. Bart Scott threw out the notion of a hold in as opposed to a hold out. Barkley doesn't want to lose that $590,000 a game paycheck. So what's going to happen? Potentially, he doesn't show up to camp. He shows up at the last possible minute, maybe a week before regular season game one happens, Joe. And but I'm not in football shape. I don't want to, tear a muscle, a hamstring. I'm not going to be ready for the first few weeks of the season. So Bart Scott calls it a hold in, where maybe we won't see Barkley play for the Giants for the first 3-4 weeks of the season because he's not in football shape. So I think that's a really good possibility that happens. So I'm going with the under here for Saquon Barkley. Boy, is he ticked off that he didn't get a long-term deal. Josh Jacobs, right? Led the league in rushing last year. He didn't get a deal. Sitting outside his car, outside the facility, still didn't get a deal. Poor guy. But with that being said, 1,500 yards. Are you looking at this the similar situation with Saquon Barkley? How are you playing this rush total?
Very similar. And to your point about a hold in, it doesn't just have to be at the beginning of the season where you're trying to stick it to the team. You could play, and then as the season wears on, you get to really crunch time like the playoffs or right before the playoffs, I should say, and all of a sudden that hamstring starts to cramp up. We saw something like that supposedly with Marshawn Lynch in the final days in Seattle as he was trying to get his money. It wouldn't surprise me at all if you saw that with Barkley or with Josh Jacobs. Now, that said, if Jacobs is going to be there and he's going to play, the Raiders are going to run him into the ground. He is not their guy. He was drafted by a previous regime. So the guys that are there now ran him into the ground last season and got, 1,600 yards out of him? I would expect them to do that again. Again, the handicap comes down to whether or not the player is going to be able to play. Because if he's out there, he's certainly going to exceed this number. Haven't made a bet on this one either, however.
Yeah, a part of me is leaning towards the under. Something's telling me the Raiders are going to be quite bad this season. I think they're going to be playing from behind, and I think that they're going to be passing the ball a lot more than they have in years past. And last but not least, in regards to the running back situation, Tony Pollard, he's at 975.5. Now, from what I understand, you see this situation differently. How so?
This is an over. He's already signed the deal. Pollard's situation is very different from Jacobs and Barkley. He doesn't have as much wear on his tires. He doesn't have the pedigree. He hasn't put up the same type of numbers. He's not out there clamoring for a deal like they are because he hasn't necessarily earned it yet playing behind Ezekiel Elliott. That doesn't mean he doesn't want it, but I think his mindset is, all right, franchise tag, I'm making $10 million this year. Let's go out and prove it, and let's get a long-term deal after this. Because, like I said, he has like half the carries on his tires that a guy like Josh Jacobs does. This isn't a huge number to eclipse when you're a workhorse running back. And there's no indication that Dallas is going to have 2 or 3 running backs cutting into this workload. He went over this number last year. I believe we had 23 running backs over the last 2 seasons since we expanded to 17 games who have topped this number. And when you have a good passing attack like Dallas does, going to limit the 7- and 8-man boxes you might see like Derrick Henry faces in Tennessee. So the running lane should be there for a guy who averaged 5 yards per carry last season. And then finally, this is a team that should win a lot of games. They're projected to win a lot of games in the regular season. And if they're winning late in those games, you turn the ball over to the rushing attack to grind the clock out and finish the job. So Tony Pollard as an over, that is a bet I have already made.
I'm keeping an eye on his receiving yardage because he's so dynamic. I love the way that he's utilized in the passing game with Dak Prescott as well. So that is a total that I more than likely will play the over in receiving yards for Tony Pollard. Last but not least, let's end with Tyreek Hill. He came out this past week and said, I'm going to put up over 2,000 receiving yards in Miami. Now, that's 750 yards over his prop number. So what do you make of that? How are you going to the window knowing that Tyreek Hill has some hefty expectations for himself?
I mean, the handicap has nothing to do with Hill. Once he left Patrick Mahomes and put up bigger and better numbers in Miami, we know he's one of the game's best at the position. Question comes down to Tua Tagovailoa, the quarterback, and whether or not he can stay healthy. And if he can, the sky is the limit for what Tyreek Hill can put up. The one thing that concerns me just a little bit in terms of big production this year, one thing, the defense is going to be a lot better now that Vic Fangio's there, as well as Jalen Ramsey at corner. There's a Miami team last year that played 11 one-score games. The 17 games they played, 11 were decided by one score, which means close games where you're throwing late. If Miami is better this season, especially on defense, they may have bigger leads late in some of these games. They may not throw as much. I believe the average pass per game that they threw, somewhere around 35 attempts per game, put them right around 10th in the NFL. If that drops off a little bit, it could hurt Hill, but I am not inclined to bet an under on this guy, given the fact that 2 receptions could result in over 100 yards any given week.
Yeah, I just, you mentioned Tua and Joe. I don't want to be a negative Nelly. I don't wish ill will on anyone. I've got some major concerns in regard to Tua being able to avoid a concussion this season. I pray to God that he does, but because of that risk and one concussion, Mike White is the backup quarterback. He was serviceable up here in New York, but far, far different than what I think Tua could do for Tyreek Hill in those numbers. So I would lean towards the under just because I've got some major concerns whether or not Tua could play 17 games this season. Joe, thank you so much. I'll see you a little bit later on Daily Wager. You can find us on ESPN2 coming your way at 5:30. I'll see you there, Joe.
I'm going to go swim the English Channel. I'll see you later.
Would not surprise me. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. We have off on Friday. I'm going to go play some golf, maybe some pickleball. But enjoy the Open. Go Team USA, and good luck, everyone.